Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
How do you get to heaven? Do I really have to read the Bible? How do I pray? Did Jesus really walk on water? That's a doozy.
The podcast where kids can get answers to their big questions about faith. Here's your host, Pastor Eric.
We live in God's big and beautiful world that is filled with wonder. And sometimes that wonder also brings up a lot of questions. And this podcast is all about asking those questions. I'm Pastor Eric, and I am here with two very special, wonderful guests who have two very special, wonderful questions. And I want to introduce them to you. So I'm going to ask them to share their name and how old they are. Why don't we start over here?
My name is Jaden, and I'm 7 years old.
Jaden, 7 years old. I have a question for you. What is your favorite ice cream?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Ooh, that sounds really good. If you have chocolate ice cream, do you put anything else on it?
Sprinkles.
Chocolate and sprinkles. Okay, now I'm getting hungry for dessert. We're going to move on. Can you share what your name is, our next guest? Say that again.
Gemma.
Gemma. And how old are you, Gemma?
5, almost turning 6.
5, almost turning 6. Okay. Well, here's a question. What do you think it's going to be like when you're 6 years old?
I don't know.
You don't know. Well, and that makes sense because you're not 6 yet. Let me ask you another question. What's your favorite ice cream?
Strawberry.
Strawberry. Have you ever considered putting strawberry and chocolate together?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
How is it?
Yummy.
It's yummy?
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, okay, we need to stop talking about ice cream because now I'm getting hungry for ice cream. But I'm going to stop asking questions, and I know that you two have some great questions. So, Gemma, would you like to ask one of your questions?
How long was Jesus on the cross?
How long was Jesus on the cross? Okay, that's a really good question. Do you have any thoughts or guesses?
No.
That's fine. Well, that's what we're here for, to talk about it. And in the Bible, there are 4 books of the Bible in the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they're called the Gospels. Can you say that?
The Gospel.
The Gospels.
The Gospels.
And they tell about Jesus' life on earth. And they tell us a little bit about when he was born, a lot about what he did when he was walking on this earth, and it tells us about when he died, specifically about his crucifixion. When he was on the cross, he was crucified. And so Mark chapter 15 tells us a little bit. It tells us the time of day, right, when Jesus was put on the cross. Do you want to guess what time of day it was when Jesus went to the cross?
Sunday?
Those are really good guesses. And Easter is a time when we look back and we celebrate that Jesus, he died on the cross, but we celebrate that he didn't stay dead, right? Well, Mark chapter 15 tells us that it was about 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified Jesus. So 9 o'clock in the morning. And then in another gospel, in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, it tells us that something happened for 3 hours between the hours of noon. What time is noon? Do you know what time noon is?
Before lunch.
Or right around lunch. It's like 12 p.m., okay? From 12 to 3 o'clock. Something crazy happened.
An earthquake?
There was an earthquake, yep.
Ooh.
Good job, Jaden. Do you know what else happened? It had to do with the sky and the sun.
All of it went black?
It went black. It was dark, so dark that you couldn't even see the front of your hands. But this was in the middle of the day. Can you imagine, do you ever go outside at recess and play in the sun?
Yes.
Is it fun?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What would happen, Gemma, if you were playing in the sun and then it just went black for no reason? What would you think?
I would keep playing.
You would keep playing. You'd probably keep falling too. But what we know is that Jesus, when he was on the cross between noon and 3, that it was black. And people really were probably a little scared, and they knew that something big was happening. And then at the end of that chapter, Matthew 27, it tells us that Jesus, he said, "It is finished," and he died. Okay, and so that was around 3 o'clock. So now we're going to do some math. Gemma, do you like math?
No, I do.
You do? Okay, so well then, Jaden, I'll ask you. If Jesus went to the cross at 9 a.m., and then the Bible tells us that he died at 3 p.m., how many hours was that?
That would be... I have no idea.
Yeah, let's do this.
6?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So what we know is that Jesus was probably on the cross for about 6 hours, give or take. That's what we know, which is actually a very short amount of time compared to other people who might have died on a cross. But that was a very interesting and good question. Thanks for asking that, Gemma. Okay, Jaden, why don't you ask one of your questions?
So, who was the first person baptized by Jesus?
Ooh, who was the first person baptized by Jesus? Okay, we can find that answer in, again, one of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, right? And it is in the book of John. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And it's chapter 4. So I'm going to turn there real quick. And Jin, do you like to read?
Yeah.
Do you want to try to read this verse? I can put it closer to you. Okay, why don't you read John chapter 4, and we're going to start at verse 1, and you're going to read, I'll tell you when to stop. So you just start reading.
Jesus and the worm of salmon. Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making a baptizing more
disciples,
that John second, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples.
Okay, that was really good. That was a tough verse to read, okay? But what it says is, so when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, and then it says in parentheses, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples. So what that verse is actually telling us is that, well, Jesus was talking about God and the kingdom of heaven and telling people to repent and to follow him. People were being baptized, but it tells us that Jesus himself was not baptizing anybody. It was the disciples around him who were baptizing people. Interesting. Did you expect that as an answer? No, that was a doozy. So there's your answer, though. Who was the first person baptized by Jesus?
Nobody.
According to John, nobody was baptized by Jesus, which was very interesting. Okay, I like that question.
I know someone baptized Jesus.
Is Jesus John the Baptism?
That's right, John the Baptism.
Easy.
John the Baptist did, yes, he did baptize Jesus. And, Jesus was baptized because he wanted to also model to us, to Christians, how important it is to be baptized. Okay, great question. Jaden, do you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear it.
How old was Jesus when he died?
How old was Jesus when he died?
I have an answer. He was like over 25. I think it was 30.
Yeah, how'd you come to those numbers, that age?
Well, I kind of learned it from church, but he was like somewhere around his 30s.
Yes. In fact, in the Bible, in Luke chapter 3, it says that Jesus, he was baptized and he began his ministry around the age of, what did you just say? 30. And then if you read through the Gospels, there's that word again, the Gospels. If you read through the Gospels and you read about Jesus' life, Do you know how many years Jesus was doing ministry on earth, talking about God's kingdom, inviting people to know God, and doing miracles? Do you know how many years he was doing that?
20?
Not 20.
16?
I'll give you a hint. 1, 2, 3.
123?
No, that was a really bad hint. I just gave you the answer. 3 years. 3 years. So Jesus was doing his ministry for 3 years. So Luke tells us that Jesus started when he was 30, and then he did ministry for another 3 years. So let's do some math. Who likes math here? Okay, Jaden, you did it. What is 30 plus 3?
33.
33. There you go. And so we know that Jesus was about 33 years old when he was crucified on the cross.
Oh.
Yeah. So we take different parts of the Bible and we can put it together and we understand. We can learn how old he was.
Oh.
Pretty good question. Okay, we're coming back over here to Gemma.
The longest Bible verse.
What is the longest Bible verse? Do you know any really long Bible verses?
I think it says Esther.
Okay.
Esther, like, 1 something something.
Esther 1 something something something.
I think it's like 123.
I'm impressed, Jaden, because
Oh, Bible verse.
you are in the right book, but it's not Esther 1. It's Esther chapter 8, verse 9. And here's the deal. It's such a long verse. I'm not going to read it right now. I hope anybody listening will read it. Maybe they can read it with their parents. All right. But it's Esther 8, 9. However, there's something very interesting about the longest verse in the Bible.
Why?
Well, that's a good question. The Bible was written in an original language. Okay. Meaning the Bible was not actually written in English. I'm curious, do any of you know any different languages?
Spanish?
Oh, can you say something in Spanish?
Hola.
No.
Hola, there we go. Can you count?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. The Bible was written in different languages, and Esther was written in Hebrew. Have you ever heard of that? Hebrew?
No.
Hebrews.
Well, so if you were to look in the book of Esther, in the original language of Hebrew, all right, Esther, I found this out. Esther 8, 9 has 43 words. Okay, 43 words. That's how many words are in that verse. Just to give you an idea. Oh, yeah?
The longest words I've ever said is like 15 words.
15 words. Did you memorize that?
It's something about sheep, like,
Sheep legs?
it's like Psalm 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's something with sheep in it.
Why'd you say sheep?
I'm impressed that you memorized that. Like, that's good. And we should hide God's word in our heart and memorize it so that it can be with us wherever we go. Well, Esther's 43 words in Hebrew, okay? Now, just to give you some understanding, have you ever said the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I've heard it.
Well, that's 31 words. Okay, so Esther 8, 9 is longer. But there's a verse in the Bible, in the New Testament, that if you're going to the original language in Greek, you ever spoken Greek before?
Yeah.
No? Yeah, it's not that common. It is, believe it or not, I believe it's like 58. Yeah, 58 words in Greek. But when they translate it to English so that we can understand it, it's not as long as Esther. So if you're going to go, what's the longest verse in the Bible in English, it's Esther. But if you want to go the longest verse in the Bible in the original language, it would be Revelation 20, verse 4. So, is that interesting?
No.
No. I am so glad you were honest, Jaden. I thought it was kind of interesting, but I've got one question for you. Do you know what the shortest verse in the Bible is?
Yes,
Jesus wept.
Jesus wept.
Okay, there you go. Have you memorized that verse yet?
No. I mean, it's always just
I don't need to talk about my Bible verses.
You don't need to talk about them. Do you practice memorizing verses? No. I think you just memorized it, Jaden. Right here on this podcast. You just memorized the shortest verse in the Bible.
Jesus
Pretty cool.
wept. Jesus wept.
flip.
Okay. Well, Jaden and Gemma, thank you so much for asking such great questions. I bet that a lot of other boys and girls and even moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles had those same questions. And because you asked them, now they get to know the answers too. All right. Well, can you say goodbye?
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on That's a Doozy, and we'll ask some questions later.
That's a doozy. Thanks for listening. Do you have a question you want to ask? You can tell us at purposely.com. Just click on voicemail. Don't forget to leave a review or tell your friends about this podcast so they can listen too. See you next time.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista Family of Ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.